Welcome to the Alternative Acoustic Podcast. I'm Chris of the Chris Woods Groove Orchestra, and this podcast is brought to you by Ibanez UK. In this episode, I chat with Martin Harley. Martin is an inspirational slide guitarist. So you'll join the conversation just as we've come out of about 30 minutes of an absolute technical nightmare. So there's a sense of relief in the air, and I think it sets the tone perfectly for where the conversation seems to very quickly lead, which is around drinking and playing, the life of a musician and alcohol, which I think is a really fascinating subject. About halfway through the conversation, we move away from the big philosophical stuff and the life-changing choices that we can make, and we dive into the magic of slide playing, and Martin will treat you to some really beautiful slide playing. He's demoing stuff to give us inspiration and show us different routes into slide playing, which is really beneficial from like a tuition perspective. But actually, to be quite honest, just sitting and listening to him play those examples is absolutely fantastic. So however you're enjoying this podcast, whether you're driving the car or whether you're sat with your guitar and bottleneck in hand, ready to pick up some tips and tricks, I know you're going to enjoy this. Oh yeah, and by the way, about halfway through the podcast, I'm really struggling to find a word, and it kind of bothered me for the whole episode, but the word was homology. The definition of which is a structural, functional or symbolic correspondence between different elements of social or cultural whole. It describes a resonance or direct mapping between objective and social positions. Interesting, huh? So there you go. You can enjoy the podcast even more now. Man, do you feel traumatised?
Yeah, marginally. It never works. Like during lockdown, you know, we were all trying to stay afloat as musicians. So I would get a few invitations to do stuff online, and it would always go entirely wrong. And it would just be somehow the camera would be the wrong way around, or my children would be dancing in the background, and yeah, just nothing. None of them ever worked. Not a single one went off in a meaningful way. I mean, they were hilarious, but none of them really worked.
Wow.
So I just did a lot of hanging out with my children for sort of 3 years.
Well, that's pretty positive, isn't it? But it's nice. It's nice to mix things up, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it was wonderful, actually. I think previous to the pandemic, which was obviously really traumatic for a lot of people, I was probably touring too much anyway, and was sort of super tired and super frazzled and kind of, you know, drinking a lot at gigs and drinking a lot of coffee during the day and driving 8 hours between shows on my own across Europe in the winter. And I think I've been doing it for too long anyway. So when it did actually come to take an enforced break, I was quite happy.
So, I think for a lot of people, didn't it? It basically gave space and time to actually take stock and listen to yourself and listen to, I mean, this is a massively hippie thing to say, but basically listen to your body as well, isn't it? And I think for a lot.
Well, that interspersed with, you know, short periods of, we're all going to die.
Yeah. The focus is the mind.
I'm starting to feel quite relaxed, but the end of the world is nigh. Yeah. So, you know, a mixture of stuff, but in terms of, personal health and mental health, it was a good recalibration. But I'm very glad to be back at it. But I don't drink anymore. I don't think that's really related to COVID. I think just sort of turning 50 and being a dad and being busy.
Is that when it happened though? Is that when you cut the...
I stopped 3 years ago, so it was really just a dry-annuary gone wrong. Me and my partner Ella would do dry-annuary every year and just, have a little bit of a detox. and I was just enjoying it more, I think. You know, I did some, it's terribly name droppy, but I did some shows with Bonnie Raitt recently, and I was chatting to her because I know she doesn't drink anymore. And she just said for her, like, she just didn't want to be sloppy. Like, she loves playing, loves touring. And, you know, she seems super frustrated when she can't. I know she recently had an arm injury and she couldn't tour. She just wants to play. She wants to be in front of people. She wants to play, and she wants to be good. And I think she felt that alcohol was making her a bit sloppy. And I think at times that, you know, I'd rather be super focused than in the room. And also it changed the game for me a little bit in terms of, you know, if you're always used to having a couple of beers before you play in front of a few hundred people, that's your process. You're locked into it. And so, you know, it was a little bit terrifying going back completely sober for the first few shows. But now, it's great. I feel much more focused. I feel like I'm better. I feel like I'm more present. I can drive to and from all my shows, you know. It's not, it's not for everybody. I wouldn't criticize anyone in either direction, but for me, it's working out pretty well for now.
We talked about this a lot in Switzerland, didn't we? And that was a sort of a talking point. I seem to remember you going for a swim in the lake and other such healthy things, rather than maybe where musicians would meet in that scenario and would be looking to go on a drunken adventure. Do you know what I mean? It's like, do you want to go for a swim at 6 a.m? It's like... But do you think, and I don't know if this is just because I've got some massively out of check, out of control musician's ego, but for me personally, I think there's so much of a construct of what a musician and a creative person is, and that is playing and drinking. Not that that's the reason I or you or anyone drinks, but it's sort of, you're sort of playing into a sort of a egoic construct. But when you reach a particular age, and then you're comfortable to go, oh, no, I don't need to do that.
No, music's the drug.
Yeah.
That's it. I totally agree. So, you know, as I mentioned, I'm 50 and I grew up, you know, probably listening to, you know, Guns N' Roses and Black Sabbath and whatever. Like, rock and roll was it. To be rock and roll, you drink whiskey, you smoke, you wear a leather jacket. And, you know, the relevant parts of that are that there was no social media. There was no way to meet other people. Like, the trick was you wear your Iron Maiden t-shirt, your Black Sabbath t-shirt, and you go and walk around the town centre and you see someone else who's wearing an AC/DC t-shirt or a Black Sabbath t-shirt. You got to talk to them because you found your people, and you probably go for a beer. And that's how you found your people. Now it's so much easier, right? You have these social networks, although I have mixed feelings about that anyway. But I think rock and roll was those things. You had to go and have a few beers to meet people, find a girlfriend, find a boyfriend. Everything happened in the pub. And I think it was cooler when we were younger. Rock and roll was cool. And I see it, you know, with nieces and nephews and younger people that I know. It's just not as cool anymore. Like, it's not cool to smoke. No one sees someone smoking now and goes, that guy's cool. They're like, what a loser. Like, that's, you know, that's why would you do that? People seem fitter, so in some respects, you know, healthier. Obviously, you know, there are other factors going on in our super comfortable food arriving to the door kind of, you know, lifestyle.
For sure. But the healthy musician is a thing, isn't it? It's like especially with the world that you're in, Martin, like the idea of a blues man being like, oh no, I go to the gym 3 times a week and I eat organically. It's like that because it is that legend and that myth and that what is the word is
cliche.
It's not well. Oh man. I really want. Well, it's like idiosyncrasies, but it's the sort
stereotype.
Of, you know, it's the stereotype, but also like the fashion, the attitude, like punk, right? There's clothes, and there's political views, and there's a way of being, and
but perhaps punk is a good example, right? Because punk is sort of anti-establishment, and it's great. But actual punk was a fairly short window of time, and it was great because it got people thinking in a different way. Let's be independent. Let's work outside the existing systems. But if you hang on to that for 30 years, there's nothing less punk than still walking around dressing like a punk. That's the most anti-punk thing you can do, right? And so the idea of the drinking blues, man, it is good, you know. And when I was a kid, I did that stuff, you know. I bought into it, and I got into loads of adventures, and I probably still did go swimming in the lake at 6 a.m. I just might not have been
except you were drunk. That's amazing.
Yeah, I might not have been to bed. I never really felt like I let drinking get in the way of having those adventures and doing those things. And but I stayed up late. I met people. I probably made some bad decisions, but I've got some killer memories. But I think just as time goes on, do I want to be still awake at 4 o'clock in the bar, you know, shooting the shit with someone that I've met at the gig, or do I want to go home, get a good night's rest, wake up feeling good, see the place I'm in, maybe go to a museum, do some of that stuff? I've done the other thing. I've done it loads. I've met awesome people. I've got a bunch of songs out of it, but I'm just enjoying different things. And I want to be awake and present for those things. And I want to be doing this when I'm 80 years old. This is not a job you retire from, and I don't want that decision to be taken away from me because I've made lifestyle choices that perhaps make it impossible.
Wow, that's so grown up.
It is one of the most grown up things I've ever said, immortalized on your podcast now.
There's so much truth in it. I did a youth music sort of advisory board. I don't know how you would do it, but it was musicians, and we were sort of trying to, I suppose, talk about being a musician and saying to young people, this is what I've learned, and, you know, I think that you'll find this helpful. And I really had to think about what I would say, you know, as sort of advice or something that I've definitely learned. And I came to the conclusion that actually the best advice I've got is to be financially savvy. But it just, I mean, it's just been such a big thing all through my life, is that sort of the more desperate I am to make money, sometimes the more negative effect that has on creativity, because the less need I have to make money from the art I make, the less I have to consider other people, and I can just make music and art. Do you know what I mean? And whereas, you know, if you're financially secure, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how well your next track does or whatever.
Yeah, I guess there's a few questions there. I mean, I did a talk at my daughter's school, so they have the RAF come in and the police force come in, and they say, "Here, you know, this is what we do," and they invited me in to talk. And so
I bet that would have been so much cooler if you turned up in the days where you had a rollie hanging out of your mouth and a bottle of whiskey in the other hand. You were like, "This is my dad."
They wouldn't have let me through the doors. But yeah, a similar thing. If you're relying on music as your income, there is a dangerous seesaw there, because if what you're doing is consistently successful and you're following a format that does make money, then the creativity may well suffer because you're not going to take as big a risks. So I do think that the most important thing that I probably said in that talk, and that I could say to people that are being creative in any way, shape or form, is fail a lot, fail spectacularly, and understand that is entirely part of the process. Do things that don't work. Even if it's writing a little ditty on a piece of paper, and, you know, throw it away. Don't show it to anyone. be creative, but let those things not be successful. You don't have to make everything you do successful and financially successful. If you do, I don't think it will be that great. I think you have to allow yourself to change. You have to be open to ideas. I spend a lot of time with books like The Creative Act, which I think is really good. I'm trying to remember his name now. Tetragrammaton. He's got a podcast. It's going to annoy me now. Rick Rubin. Book.
Oh, the Big Grey Book. Yeah. I got stuck into that, man. That's amazing.
I think there's some good advice in that about, once you do the thing, it's out in the world. You've done the creative thing, right? And that is writing the song. Yeah. Once you've recorded it, you've made a postcard and you're out selling that postcard to the world. That little snapshot of where that song was on that day, right? You're out there touring it and sort of selling that. That's a different sport. That should be successful. Like when you're putting together a tour and you're in front of people and you're taking people's money, you should be out there delivering, being good. You can be creative and you can improvise with the songs that you have. I love going to see artists who don't play the same song twice and don't tell the same stories every night. But the creative thing, you have to be okay with failure because it's going to happen a lot. And if you're going to get better, that's where you're going to do all your learning. If you constantly just hang out in that middle ground where people are like sort of pat you on the back and go, oh yeah, that's good. That sounds like one of your songs. And don't occasionally take a leap, far left or far right. I think that can stifle the creativity.
Interesting. So, Martin, to link that to slide playing, I would love to talk about the difference between slide and playing, fretted, if you like, because I think lots of people that listen to this, I reckon the majority are going to be people who have never played slide or have only dabbled and put it away. And I think aside from like this, I think that sometimes there's almost a cultural thing of like seeing slide guitar playing as like a totally different thing. And, you need some kind of validation to get into it. And if you've maybe really quite good at guitar, but then your slide game is going to be really terrible, you don't want to sort of mix them up. But do you think there's something about the imperfection of slide? So I've just spent a lot of time playing fretless guitar, for example, and a big thing of that is getting comfortable with playing a note that may not be,
in tune.
Well, I'm trying to use the right word because obviously I'm striving to be in tune, but actually I'm enjoying intonating notes slightly differently, and it's like the edge of chaos or something, isn't it? And there's a sort of there's a creativity to that. And go on, you.
The instruments that we play, or the way I perceive the instruments that I play, is they're tools for self-expression, right? I want to write songs and tell stories, and I want those instruments to play into that narrative, right? So sometimes scruffy is great. Scruffy is good. If that's what the song wants, that's okay. But one preconception about slide guitar that really annoys me is that a lot of people go loose and scruffy all the time, right? Because they sort of think it's authentic to sort of crash and bang and just do these big 12th fret slides. And
The Alternative Acoustic Podcast is proudly supported by Ibanez UK. Now, the Ibanez V Series has long stood for high quality at seriously affordable prices, available in all kinds of finishes, shapes and sizes. Now, I got to try all of them out recently, and a particular favourite of mine was the incredible Mini, which is the perfect travel size guitar. I mean, it sounds way bigger than it looks. The entire V series and all Ibanez guitars are available now at Gear for Music, so make sure you go and check them out.
Can you show me what you mean by loose and sluffy and that sort of loose and sluffy?
Okay, so I'm playing on a Weissenborn, but it's the same. I mean, I open D tuning, right? And so a lot of people might just be like, right? And it's okay. It's cool.
So it's sort of percussive, and it's not thinking about perfection of pitch. It's just sort of the force of it.
It's just you just hear a lot of people just don't go past those initial octave sort of slides, the sort of Elmore Dames Dust My Broom, which is great. It's brilliant. It tells the story of that song, but like, he's done that's great. And hearing it 10,000 times doesn't make it any better for me. Like hearing 10,000 people trying to play like Stevie Ray Vaughan, it doesn't work. We all have influences. I'm hugely influenced by Kelly Joe Phelps, and I think you can hear that in my playing. But I don't try and replicate him. I try and take what he thought were important values. In fact, he said, as a slide player, I think sometimes people punish you for sort of trying to be good, like making your intonation better, making it cleaner. But what I loved about him was he was always looking for different chords. So as opposed to just doing like a 1, 4, 5, so he'd look for. He looked for different chords. How do we make them interesting instead of just having the slide playing across all the strings? Let's tip it up. Let's isolate single notes.
So the slide isn't just flat across all strings playing whole open chords.
Exactly. If you partially cover the strings, for example, on the 7th fret, give you nice blinders. So you've got 3 open strings, 3 closed. If you're just playing your big open D chord, but you're tipping that slide up and just picking out parts of a simple kind of major melody. So you got those, but you play the chord underneath. Pedal on this. If you're an open D, you've got 2 Ds on the bottom there, so you can keep your rhythm. Still using those same major notes at the top. So he was just all about keeping the rhythm, playing the melody. He also sang fantastically and wrote great songs. But so having an instrument where the intonation isn't always perfect, that's okay, but it can be good still. And I think maybe some people get to a certain point with slide playing and just sort of stop, and I don't know how you get over that. I mean, for me, just being obsessed with the limitation of the instrument is the best way I can explain it to me. Explain how I see it is that I'm happy to sit in a room and repetitively play little phrases or improvise around a very simple theme for quite long periods of time. I don't struggle with concentrating on that, and I don't find it boring. I find it fascinating.
Do you think that's because of the element of variety that you can, more so with slide, if you play 3 notes, there's an infinite spectrum of possibilities, whereas if I fret the note da da da, it's pretty much going to be the same beyond maybe the right hand,
Yeah, or it's just that by repetition you get more comfortable, you get more muscle memory, and when you're playing a song, there's just more, you're expanding your vocabulary slowly, and you're constantly evolving your technique, even if that technique is just playing more simply sometimes, doing what a song needs. I find that doing those repetitive things just makes me more confident. I'm not on the edge of like my abilities. I'm not trying to push for something I might not get. I'm just, my muscles are used to it. And yeah, when I'm playing a show, it's like, yeah, I think I'll head off piste with this, and all those, all the time you spent practicing and isolating those little things. I think they pay dividends. But I think I'm more leaning on the fact that the way my brain is, which is probably true of a lot of musicians, maybe, a little bit spectrumy, in that we really like doing repetitive things constantly for long periods of time. It's only when I talk to other musicians who they do this stuff too, like whether they're drummers or whatever, they sit around and practice, they love it, right? And then you talk to someone who's a non-musician, they're like, hang on, you sit in a room and you do the same thing for 4 hours, does it not drive you mental? And you suddenly realize, oh, okay, it's not for everyone. So maybe it's just something about how I'm wired that makes me just fascinated, obsessed. I'm not trying to reach a goal. I'm not trying to be like, I don't want to go to shows and someone go, you're the best I've ever seen. I want someone.
It's nice when they say that though, Martin, right?
Well, you can't take that stuff on board. If someone says you're the best guitar player they've ever seen, you might be the best guitar player they've ever seen. But in my heart, I want to go, yeah, but go and check this guy or this guy or this guy that I listen to. But I also don't want to rob the person of having a good time at the show. But yeah, compliments are hard, aren't they, as a musician? Because you can't start believing what either people write about you or what people say about you. You would be intolerable as a human being. I want someone to say that guy was present. He was into it, and he was giving us something, and he was sharing. And like playing to an audience, it's a completely different thing from playing in a room on your own or playing on a record. You're having a conversation. We're all at the same show. I want to talk to my audience. I want to know what they're interested by. I want them to ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question, Someone asked at a show where I was playing with a wonderful double bass player called Mark Lewis. They're like, how do you make the notes on the double bass? And some of the audience sort of giggled because it was, maybe they're musicians or it seemed sort of stupid. But to me, it's the most wonderful question that someone has sat in a room, right? And they're looking at a double bass and they honestly have no idea how the sounds that are coming out of it, which they clearly enjoy and are wonderful, they have no idea how they're made. And to me, that's magic, right? Isn't it? Like someone is doing something and you have no idea how that is happening. And just to ask a simple question and have that explained was really cool. But it also just demonstrates that, we all nerd out about the finer details of this, that, and the other. But when you go and see music, it's people expressing themselves with other people to other people. What a cool experience. What a shared experience. Love that.
For sure, man. Yeah, as musicians, we can sometimes forget the magical element that it has for people watching it because they have no actual understanding of how it's being created. But it's just because we understand all those intricacies, it kind of can strip away it strips away the illusion a bit, doesn't it? Really.
Have you ever been to a show where you've complimented the musician and they've said something back to you like, yeah, but I screwed up the second verse and
constantly
wasn't my best show? See, that really bothers me because when someone has, sometimes got the courage to come up and talk to you, because people are nervous about talking to other people sometimes, and certainly about paying a compliment or appearing unqualified to do so, right? When someone comes up and goes, man, that was amazing, that moved me, and then the artist says something like, wasn't my best, last night was better, or Yeah, I made some mistakes. To be honest, I was in a terrible place. I'm like, don't say that. Say thanks, because you're robbing that person of the experience that they've just had. And as far as they're concerned, that's the coolest thing, they've seen or heard. So
I think that's excellent advice, man. I should try and take that, because my tendency. Well, I do consciously always say thank you, but quite often I've genuinely been dying inside my head whilst I'm playing that show. Like, honestly, even though I love performing so often, like, my inner monologue is really, really negative, man.
Join the club. So is mine.
Like, you're not meant to be here, Martin.
We all, yeah. There's plenty of people who I'm sure have wonderfully, impenetrable egos that don't think like we do. But my internal critic is like, someone could do this better, or even that joke didn't land, that bit where you improvised, that went wrong. You're a loser. You shouldn't be here. That's always there. Like, we have to make friends with that, but that's part of our job. Whether you're an actor or whatever, like, people have paid their 20 quid to come and see you. They don't want to know the inner workings of your mind, not unless they really ask, right?
They don't want to know that you're going to be crying home on the M3 on the way back at 3 a.m. Like, thanks very much. Yeah, but I will be crying for the duration of the journey home. But I do appreciate it. Would you like to buy an album?
Would you like to buy an album of stuff which I recorded 3 years ago, which I hate and I never listened to?
Yes. That's the. Yeah, it's not good, is it?
No, but it is important though, because when people start out, like, there is, you embrace failure. And that internal critic doesn't go away. I know lots of people who are super successful, play on huge stages under huge amounts of pressure, and they play with some of, the finest folks in the world. They have the same issues. They just, you have to find ways to deal with them, or you can't move forward. And most of the time, it turns out okay. You got to be kind to yourself as well. You got up and you played a show today. There's probably 50 people for every one person that didn't play a show today because they let the internal critic be too loud, and it stopped them actually sitting on a chair and expressing themselves in front of other people at the risk of someone not liking it, or someone agreeing with your internal critic. The worry that someone's going to come up and vocalize the voice you've got in your head, that would be terrifying and crushing. Someone came up and went, "That second verse kind of sucked. I've seen you a few times and this is definitely the worst." We are critical, and I think being self-critical does help you get better, maybe as a form of defense. Maybe that's not good. I'm not sure, but I think you do need a toolkit to go out there and be creative in front of people. And, I definitely, I'm not harp on about not drinking, because there's probably lots of other mental changes that or just ways of thinking that have changed anyway that might have led to that. But I just don't give myself a hard time. If you have a gig, maybe the sound's not great, you're like, oh, I don't feel like either the sound represents me, or I don't feel like I've given an amazing account of myself this evening. I'm not going to cry on the A3 about it, or the M3 in your case. I am just going to go, I got up, I did it. It's a gig. There's going to be another one tomorrow. I do 100 of these a year. It's like, I can't let that crush my spirit for making music. Like, I have to recognize that it's there. I think we all have that voice, but I think, just give yourself a break.
Okay. That's good. That's very, very universal and helpful advice, I think. So with that confidence thing in mind, then, going back to Slide, and I was trying to express earlier that I think a lot of people, myself included, really love the sound of Slide. Really, I mean, even just you demoing a few minutes there of something. It's such a visceral, beautiful sound, especially in your hands. And
It's better in my hands than in my feet, that's for sure.
do you try that sometimes? But having the confidence to bring that into my sort of repertoire, and for other players as well, being maybe they're pretty darn good at finger picking, but then it's this bringing slide in. It seems like it's like switching an instrument or something. What's a nice way to sort of access slide, do you think, and to sort of be able to?
Well, I mean, look, firstly, it goes both ways. Like, I play a lot of slide, but if you ask me to do like a bunch of passing chords or play a jazz progression, like, it's not there. I've spent my time on this instrument, right? So that's, if you're looking to get into slide and you want to do some simple stuff, it's the first thing is the tuning of the guitar, right? I'm currently playing across my lap, but I can be playing anything really.
Yeah, go on, show us a normal guitar.
So I've got a resonator here, which is really set up for a regular guitar. I've got to try and find a slide. I'm knocking around this room. There probably is one, but
how are we doing, by the way? We still recording and stuff? Is everything still rolling on your end? That's good.
Yeah, it seems pretty good. So I'm taking a national. It's set up to play regularly because I like the sort of jazzy progressions on the resos. But so if you take your low E, turn it down, tune it down to D, then take the G string down to F sharp, next string down to A, I-E down to D. And that, some people tune to a G. I tune to open D because I play on my own quite a lot, and I like having that low bass note, so that I can finger pick with that. And I would just, I'm now putting a glass bottleneck on my finger. Before, when you heard me play, I was playing across my lap with something called a tone bar, which is a heavy bit of brass or steel.
And this is always on your little finger as well, Christian.
But yeah, this one is glass. It's always on my little finger. A lot of people play with on their third finger. I think there's a great argument that you can get a stronger tone from your third finger because it's just a bigger bit of meat, if you like. I generally think you're probably more dexterous with your third finger. But I like having three fingers available for other chords, so that my 5 chord can be, I can do that. I need 3 fingers to do that.
So you're, just to describe what you're doing audibly, you're actually fretting a chord behind then, like.
Exactly. So the difference. So if you're starting and you're a regular guitar player, maybe you don't want to just flip an instrument across your lap like I do, and start with your regular guitar. So yeah, the tuning is the first thing. A lot of people do and can play slide in open tuning, but I personally think it's easier to start with an open chord, simply because that thing I mentioned earlier.
So there you're just covering all strings.
You can pretty much cover all the strings and just start getting a feel for it. My criticism of that style earlier is not that you shouldn't do that, it's just you shouldn't do that and stop there, because there's so much more on offer. So I would just look at single notes over your open chords, whatever you're tuned to. Yeah, so round about an open D. Picking simple maybe just the major scale.
So you're just playing a open low note, letting the chord resonate.
Yeah. when you're playing slide on a regular guitar, certainly if you set it up, it's set up as a regular guitar, you are going to get these clacks and bangs off the fret. The second string can help you sometimes avoid the high E rattle that you'll get. But yeah, there's the amount of pressure you put on a slide is something that you're only going to get by practicing. I don't think you're instantly just sort of going to jump on and just be really great at slide. You're limiting how many fingers you use. You've got to recalibrate a lot of different things. But when you're starting, I mean, the thing I heard that got me going on slide was probably the soundtrack to Paris, Texas by Ry Cooder.
It's simplicity, right? Is that sort of, rather than trying to do lots of things at once, just that sort of, is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just find a slide that fits on your finger. There's a world of choice. Some people like a heavy brass slide. The problem with that is that it's gonna make more noise against the fret. It's gonna bash against your frets a bit more. It's gonna be a little bit harder to get it sounding clean. The advantage of a heavier slide is it's going to give you more sustain, probably a little bit more volume. I like to keep the instruments with which I play the bottleneck, the glass slide on, so that I can still fret, so the actions are quite low. Therefore, having quite a light slide means that I can make the notes a little bit cleaner without too much of this happening. I might play a mixture of just, say fingerstyle. So I'm there sort of pedaling on the 2Ds, playing with my fingers that don't have the slide on. And the slide in for a 4 chord. So you don't have to be sliding all the time. It's a flavour that you're adding. Like, does the song you're writing, does the piece you're writing, does it need it? Does it need to be slide all the time? Would you rather play some straightforward chords on 4 and then so I think a combination with bottleneck. That's the really nice thing about bottleneck is you can. There's more choice in the textures and the sounds you can make because you can get to more chords. If you're playing across your lap, the Weiserborn style that I was playing first off, it's harder to find passing chords. It's harder to find minors without retuning the guitar entirely. So I think for that reason, taking your regular guitar, tune it to an open D or an open G, and just experimenting with covering all the strings. What sound does that make? And then trying to isolate single notes, not just the top E, but sort of working down through a major scale across the strings. That was a terrible one. Just isolate some single notes so you can throw them in there, when you need them.
Beautiful, man. I feel that chord was the perfect place to finish.
But yeah, when you're starting out, there's just have some fun. I think, I feel like it is a little bit of a diversion. Some guitar players may be getting bored thinking, I want to try slide out. And I think you sort of dip in and dip out. I certainly didn't come out of the gate as a slide player. It's slowly developed. Those wonderful haunting melodies like, Ry Cooder's soundtrack to Paris, Texas, and the wonderful vocal quality that a lot of gospel slide guitar players, you know, they were called sacred steel players. So sometimes when you didn't have a female vocalist in a gospel band, you would have a steel player, like, you know, playing across his lap, quite often using swells on the tone knob to make it sort of wah, pre-wah days. And they just wonderful gospel singer licks on these instruments. And I, you know, hearing that kind of stuff was really inspiring. You know, obviously, Derek Trucks is a great exponent of that sort of style. It's very human voice-like. And so, yeah, moving out of that basic sort of slide guitar is blues sort of thing. You know, when you start off, everyone's like, slide guitar's blues, it's Robert Johnson, it's the Crossroads, it's Muddy Waters. But then there are people like Debashis Bhattacharya playing wonderful Mohan Venas or Chaturangis, the Indian version of the slide guitar.
Okay, yeah.
And, you know, there's so many, you know, it's in country, it's in Western swing. You've got the dobro, you know, wonderful exponents of that, like Jerry Douglas, who has an amazing ability to play around vocalists and play numerous styles and to improvise, you know, in a spectacular way. So slide isn't just the blues. It's a good place to start because the format of the blues can be quite simple. The finer points much more complicated, but yeah, blues is a good place to start. But I would certainly urge people who are listening, you know, think about taking up slide to, you know, to listen to some of the Indian stuff as well, and you know, just see where slide turns up and what it can do. You know, I think there's a lot of inspiring slide players out there that aren't straight ahead blues players.
I think that's great, man. I think that's really exciting to hear, almost the sort of validation that go and play some slide and take it somewhere different. You know,
well, I can't do the Indian thing, but just you know. It's an approximation, but. Yeah, just trying those little, you know, those different flavours in, whether they be Eastern or and you know, in gospel there's more of you know, I don't know. There's lots of flavours. There's lots of ways to go. If it can be sung, it can be played on the slide guitar, right? It's that wonderful thing of almost a fretless instrument. I know you're familiar with, but just, you know, the delineation between the notes. You don't have to cross over a fret. You've got that smooth vocal quality to it, and you know, and vibrato as well. I mean, you'll hear a lot of slide players talk about vibrato. You'll hear B.B. King saying he was trying to emulate Bucka White's slide vibrato. You'll hear Derek Trucks talking about, you know, which sort of vocalists had certain kinds of vibrato. And, you know, it just makes it a very expressive vocal instrument.
beautiful. Martin, thank you so much.
No worries, man. It was nice talking to you.
A huge thank you to Ibanez UK for making this conversation possible.